The National School of Government is running online courses for public servants to complete while observing the national lockdown at home. The Public Service and Administration Minister is urging public servants to enroll for the compulsory Nyukela Pre-Senior Management Service course as part of building an ethical, capable and developmental sector. How relevant is this course given the recent events within the public service? Well, we're joined by the school's principal, Busani Ngcaweni. Busani, perhaps let's begin here. I mean, are all public servants mandated to take some courses with your School of Governance before they can actually be public officials?
Good evening, Kathy, and thank you for inviting us as the National School of Government. Yes, we run a variety of programs as the National School of Government. There are programs like Nyukela, which we have mentioned. It is a compulsory pre-entry course, which means if you, Kathy, wanted to join government at SMS level, you have to complete this online course before you can be eligible for appointment in the public service. In a few months' time, we will be finalizing a similar program, pre-entry, for other levels below SMS, below senior management. There are other compulsory programs. Some are contact, some are face-to-face, which are compulsory for public servants to complete, say, within a cycle of 3 years. Some of these compulsory online programs include ethics in the public service, and we're now rolling out a course on gender mainstreaming in the public service. Some of these are generic. They are compulsory for everybody from level 1 all the way up to DG level.
How would you gauge the success rate of such courses? So what are the indicators you would be looking at when it comes to delivery or even efficiency within the public service that will let you know that we're on the right track or maybe we're not?
Well, yeah, that's a difficult one, because I tell colleagues that in the public service, even if you took the whole of Harvard and Oxford and Princeton and Cambridge faculty into the public service and you think you've gotten the best from all over the world, you will not achieve the impact unless you also deal with other systemic issues that impede on the ability of officials to apply the skills that they have learned. So to the extent that public servants work within a particular ecosystem, we must, as a National School of Government, give them all the technical skills and competencies required for them to perform, but also the ecosystem itself has to work. If I make an example now, you've made a shift as a TV channel. Ordinarily, I would have come to studio. You are now doing it online, and we are doing many hundreds and hundreds of such interviews online this way. You may wish to do so between yourself and your producer, but if the ecosystem, such as having broadband access, doesn't work, then these interviews will not be possible. So in the public service, and we have done assessments in the past where public servants will say, I now know how to manage projects theoretically because I've learned this. However, in the department where I work, there are these conditions that militate against my ability to apply that which I have worked. So on a project we're working on, as a department, as a cluster, as a portfolio led by Minister Ngcaweni, we are identifying those impediments that hinder the ability of public servants to apply the skills they have learned, because the ecosystem matters as much as the ability to do the work.
So what are some of the systemic issues then, and perhaps if you can be a bit more clearer in pointing them out, that have been listed over the years that those in the public service feel are a hindrance to them being able to do their jobs?
So a few basic ones. So if we say to public servants, we're giving them the technical training to enable them to deliver services remotely from home. It is not all public servants who qualify for a laptop. It's not all of them who qualify for data, which means you can train them on how they can deliver services whilst working remotely during COVID, to the extent that the levels they occupy mean that they don't qualify for devices and data. They will not be able to perform whatever type of training you will have given them. You will have people who are CFOs, chartered accountants, bright people, qualified people who may work in a department or an environment which is such that governance systems have collapsed around a CFO's office. Surely that CFO cannot be expected to deliver a clean audit if there is a complete collapse of government in a department or in a municipality where the person works. So those are some of the environmental or ecosystem issues that impede on the ability of people to do the best they can. Whilst when they've come from our training, we also actually don't just do training direct, we do training directly. We also partner with institutions. So we've partnered with about 6 universities. We're going to be partnering with a few more universities locally and internationally to build the ability of our public servants to do their work diligently.
When we look at the state of corruption in the country, and especially, where government is concerned, much of this corruption cannot happen without the assistance of public service workers who are whether working at municipal level, at provincial level, or even at national level, because there are different processes that things need to go through, and often it requires a number of officials to either sign off on the document or turn a blind eye to what is happening. What would you say the training that you're giving officials when it comes to not being corrupt is? And are you at all surprised by the high levels of corruption despite the compulsory training that many of them have had to go through?
Okay, that's an important question because, by the way, some of the people who are caught with their hands in the cookie jar are people who are most qualified, with advanced degrees. Sometimes these are lawyers, advocates, chartered accountants, as well as engineers. But there's few factors we must take into account when we deal with issues of corruption and why there will be public outrage. Number one, there will be a problem of the process. If the process is not followed, that becomes a questionable thing. That's how people crook the system, by predetermining an outcome. They don't follow the process. Secondly, after you have given me a tender, Katie, without following the process, the procedures, I then inflate the prices. That's a second count if you were in a court of law. And thirdly, I didn't follow the process. I inflated the prices, and then I don't deliver, or if I do deliver, I deliver a shoddy service. Now, you can provide the training, and we do that as the National School of Government, working as a school together with many partners outside on ethics, as well as on building the ability to chair a bid committee, strategic purchasing. Those are the causes that we have. But to the extent that there is weak governance, where people know there is no consequence management, they will then be tempted to do the wrong things, or they are also rent seekers. Rent seekers, how they work, Katie, they are like bees. They circle around where they think there is something that is attractive to them. And where they see that there are weaknesses, they will then move in very quickly. So you must provide necessary training to public servants, but you must build sound governance systems, including consequence management. In the next few months, we'll be launching a program targeted at ministers, mayors, MECs, and so on, because they themselves need to be supported so they're able to do their oversight responsibilities. Because in some instances, and we've seen it, across the public sector, which includes SOEs, where you have a board in an SOE where more than half of the members of the board don't even qualify to become senior managers in an SOE. In such an instance, those executives in an SOE will run rings around these board members because they can't read a corporate plan. They can't hold people accountable because they are just out of their depth, basically. So as a school, the type of training programs we are coming up with, using online platforms now that we are unable to have a lot of contact training, are targeted at people from the first level in the public service all the way up to ministers, board members, councillors, and so on. Like in 2 weeks' time, we're doing a big program on gender mainstreaming. It is a big issue, and we're trying to discourage the idea that a gender mainstreaming program is designed for women. No. In the majority of cases, people who must attend gender mainstreaming, who must be sensitized and trained, it is men, because they make decisions every day that actually undermine the projects of advancing women empowerment.